Wow, that was beautiful, huh? Really makes you think about how much you love a particular movie that you maybe want to watch right now. I know I do. But it's too bad, huh? These days, I'm the guy that just like walks around saying these days, like inserting that into every conversation, every sentence that they say. They're like, well, with the roads these days. Oh my gosh, and teachers these days. And don't get me started on wool these days, dude. But hey, that's just the way the cookie crumbles, all right? I'm secretly the guy that says that's just the way the cookie crumbles every time. There's other fish in the sea. That's just how the cookie crumbles. Today I'm just going to be doing catchphrases for like the next 40 minutes. Not really. It'll be a short stream today. I don't have any cool video games planned right now. Instead, I've been obsessively lusting over Blu-rays. All of my amazing physical media that I sleep with every night. It kind of fills the bed and sets up like kind of a crevice for me to fall into around me. I feel protected with my plastic, shelving of Blu-rays that kind of coddle me when I go to bed. Um, I don't know about you though. Maybe you don't have any physical media, right? But I made a video. I streamed several weeks ago talking about physical media in regards to video games and how PlayStation 5 or 5 PlayStation Sony announced that they're not going to be manufacturing any more PlayStation 5 discs in 2028, and it kind of calls into question, the purpose of physical media and whether or not it's really necessary, especially in the gaming ecosystem. Um, but I didn't talk about movies or TV shows or streaming in that conversation. Feels very separate. Um, One of the biggest differences is that there's no, really need to render anything too intensive. You can really easily reproduce movies and TV shows on all sorts of devices, especially with Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey out right now. People are making a lot of jokes about, oh, you want me to see it on this fancy prestige format? Guess what, Chris Nolan? I'm watching your movie on an iPod Nano or whatever, right? But it's true that like shows and movies are really accessible because you don't need any special hardware to be able to engage with them, really. Most people have laptops, computers, um, phones, smart devices, even if you don't have a really nice TV. Um, so it's really easy to watch anything on any of those devices. But especially in our in today's world, there it comes again. We have so many convenient apps and services that will kind of hand feed us the movies and shows that we want to see. And while some of them um, are available to purchase wherever you'd like, some of the others are locked to a streaming service, or at least are temporarily locked to a streaming service. A lot of those they still feel pretty comfortable printing discs. Netflix doesn't really do a lot of physical media, but I do have some Blu-rays of their movies. Um, and HBO is another one where instead of subscribing to HBO, you can get a lot of their stuff on Blu-ray, DVD, even new stuff like the new Last of Us TV show. Um, but you can still pretty easily just go on to like uh, Apple TV, I guess. It used to be iTunes. You can go to Fandango now and buy a digital copy of the movie that gets attached to an account, and you kind of agree to their license terms and hope that you get to keep watching that movie for as long as you want. But again, Sony was in the headlines recently for folks who bought, I believe it was Studio Canal movies on their PlayStation account. Those movies were getting taken away from their accounts due to like a licensing snafu with Studio Canal. I don't know if it's really like if it was Sony's fault per se, but it doesn't really matter whose fault it is. The point is those are movies you paid for, and you're not getting back, right? Um, but what doesn't go away is the physical media. All right, and I've got a lot of it. For me, I really like movies and TV shows on disc because it's the highest quality format that you're going to find any of these videos in released in an official capacity. Um, Even folks, pirating content from like a streamer, like Netflix or something. Um, those bit rates for those videos cap out at a certain maximum. You're going to find higher bit rate video on disk. Um, which is just to say that typically when you buy a Blu-ray or something similar, you're getting the highest quality version of that released today. Now there's some, exceptions. Um, One of my favorite movies, Terminator 2, a classic action movie. It's kind of hard to decide exactly which version to buy. You can go look up online some comparisons, but James Cameron's recent 4K remasters of his movies use a lot of denoising to try and clean up some of like the film grain, and it overly smooths out the image and makes it look kind of plasticky and uncanny. That and the color balance is completely changed. I mean, some of the times, when a director goes in, everybody knows about George Lucas, right? Coming in to remaster a movie, but actually like adding all sorts of new effects and stuff and making it look different and sometimes worse. So it's not always great, You do have to do your research, but generally speaking, buying a Blu-ray, you're going to get a higher quality video than what you're going to get um, from something that you stream over the internet. But it also, it tends to be maybe a little cheaper. I don't know if you ever visited like your local half price books or savers or what have you, but a lot of these places, they've got plenty of Blu-rays that people are getting rid of. They don't need, they don't have a Blu-ray player anymore. And you can pick up some great movies at really cheap prices. And you don't have to worry about the licensing. You can even get it in a higher quality, which is why I deal with it really. But the licensing stuff is, kind of a factor. But you miss out on one big thing, which is convenience, right? If you want to watch a Blu-ray movie or show, um, you got to rip the Blu-ray if you want to watch it on anything that doesn't have a Blu-ray reader, or Blu-ray disc drive, right? And these days, you're more likely to watch stuff on your phone or your iPad, or even, using those devices to cast video to a TV connected to the internet. You don't have anything even hooked up to the TV. You're using built-in apps on the television that has its own operating systems, running its own applications that can connect to the internet. Um, and if they're not connecting to, an app where you can load up your digital library, then it can at least connect to, yeah, something that you can cast to the TV, right? Um, and so that kind of removes the the benefit of having uh, physical media, if it's really locked down to a physical device. So what I've been doing a lot of recently, I mean, I've been doing it for years, but especially it's been a recent obsession of mine was ripping a lot of these movies to digital files that you can do whatever you want with. You can run your own server to kind of act like a Netflix or um, Hulu, Disney Plus type service. You can load it up with your content and stream it to whatever kinds of devices, assuming that you've got, hardware to do it all, right? One day, I'd like to set up like a Jellyfin server similar to Plex, where, yeah, you can load up uh, videos that you've ripped. Um, Typically, though, it's used for pirated content, and that's fine. I mean, it's, I guess, technically against the law. In that people will maybe come after you if you start divulging too much information. But I'm happy. Just I'm loving my little homegrown operation of ripping my own Blu-rays. I have enough of my own, and again, for me, it's really about the quality of the content. that is more dubious if you just download it off of the internet, right? Now there are certain scenes, groups where you can get into uh, really high quality media ripping and trading. So again, I'm not saying that those options aren't out there, but for me personally, what I've been enjoying is ripping my own Blu-rays and turning them into files that are easy to put on other devices in the house, maybe share with friends and family. Um, and today, I just wanted to kind of walk through what that process looks like. So we're going to flip over to my desktop here. I can't figure out which one I want to click on. No, no, here we go. Haha! All right. Here's my desktop. Don't forget, I'm running Fedora with KDE Spin. So this is the KDE Plasma Desktop Fedora under the hood. This is all Linux, but most of the software is cross-platform, so I'm not going to be doing anything too Linux specific. More just to show, you don't have to have Windows or a specific operating system to do any of this stuff. But here we are on Linux, and the most important application that we're going to be using is Make MKV. And I guess I should also state, before this, stating the obvious, you also need a Blu-ray player. This is the Blu-ray disc drive that I happen to have. I bought this years ago. It's an LG internal disc drive. You don't need to see my location. But yeah, this is a Ultra HD internal disc drive. So this is nice because it can read all types of discs, and it's also internal, so it can get a lot faster than an external drive. But they all, I mean, generally are okay. Uh, One of the differences, though, if you're going to be ripping Ultra HD discs, you might need one that uses Libra Drive. So this is like flashed firmware. To get into the history of you know some of this stuff, DVDs are kind of the original uh, disc movie formats that took America by storm. Laser discs were popular for enthusiasts or like if you lived in Japan, but generally speaking, everybody really got on the train when it came to movies on DVD. A couple innovations helped to make that happen. CDs could hold 700 megs, which was a lot at the time, but still not enough for video. And video compression algorithms hadn't really developed enough by that point to cram a movie into such small space. But DVDs, those are 4.7 gigabytes or something like that, 4.2 gigabytes. Um, Enough to cram a movie into using MPEG 2. You're probably familiar with MP4s, MPEG 4, but MPEG 1 and 2 were the kind of the first proto versions of that. MPEG being the moving picture um, entertainment group, something group, enablement group. I don't remember. You can look it up. But the point is that DVDs, were kind of the first format that took the world by storm. And those had a very simple encryption layer on it. It had basically one master key that encrypted all DVDs. So you couldn't just rip the video files off of it without cracking through that encryption. However, at some point, that key was leaked and it became common knowledge, public knowledge almost. And it led to a really interesting story that you can read up on of kind of the fight for being allowed to share that key. It's a string of random letters and numbers, basically. Um, and of course, the lawyers were they were going to lawyer and were trying to stamp out this string, and it became kind of an interesting, you know, conversation, a legal topic of like, so is this protected speech? Uh, but that doesn't really matter. In the world of Blu-rays, they learn from their lessons, and each disc has its own key, essentially. Um, so with DVDs, you know, they were really easy to crack, and they're basically permanently cracked. But Blu-rays, it's still kind of an ongoing battle. You got to do some work to rip to be able to dump those keys essentially for specific discs. And there are communities maintaining big giant databases of all of these keys, so you could download them and use them to read your discs. But if you don't have those, then if you have like a new disc, it may not be added to the database. Um, anyway, this is where Make MKV comes in. This is free software. It's proprietary software, so it's not open source. Um, but it is able to sidestep the encryption that Blu-ray discs use. And it mostly relies on this like key database online that I was just describing. Um, but generally speaking, you shouldn't have to dump any keys yourself unless you have a brand new movie. Um, Otherwise, most of these keys have already been dumped to that database. So as long as you got an internet connected device, you got a Blu-ray drive, then you can use Make MKV to dump those discs. But Libre Drive, I think, is a requirement for 4K Ultra HD Blu-rays. This is firmware that you have to flash on your drive to be able to um, have it read sectors of the disk that normally aren't supposed to be read. It basically allows Make MKV to have total control over the disk drive, where there's a lot of firmware that locks applications out of doing certain things they're not supposed to do, which, as you can see here, like it, lets you read at unrestricted speeds, for example. But mostly allows you to, yeah, read all regions of DVD discs, and that's physically on the disc, the different sectors or regions. Reading the raw Blu-ray data and metadata. Um, I believe that's a requirement for Ultra HD discs, but I could be wrong. But either way, I was lucky enough to have a drive that um, folks had shared some patched firmware that you could flash onto the disk drive. And it's old enough. I believe like brand new disk drives, not that there are that many, but the newest ones have additional measures in place to try and keep people from patching that firmware. But again, if you're in the market, you can find a buyer's guide online of the different types of drives out there, the ones that have firmware available. I was lucky enough to just kind of stumble into having the right stuff myself, but that's all just to say that's kind of a requirement, I think, for Ultra HD discs. If you're not bothering with those, then you don't really have to worry about it. So Make MKV is what you use to do this Blu-ray ripping. And as the name suggests, it makes MKV files, a video container format uh, that is really nice for purposes like this. You see it a lot, again, in like pirated media because it is like a catch-all container format. The nicest thing about it is you can do pretty much anything with it. You can put any kind of video format, audio format, any number of tracks that you want, um, and subtitle formats, other kinds of metadata. You can fill it with whatever. And they're also easy to edit as well. Not, again, like, removing chunks of video, but like editing the metadata of these files. Or if you want to like pull out a certain audio or video track from the file, it's really easy to do that with MKVs. So they're very extensible. And the biggest problem with them is because it's kind of a catch-all format. You're not guaranteed to have that file work on any type of uh, device, right? And that's kind of why we're going to jump through a lot of these hoops here. We'll get into some of the video formats in a second, but first we're going to go ahead and insert a disc. Get up here and show you what I'm working with. I have this awesome Criterion copy of Mulholland Drive. Very, very nice transfer. Uh, Overseen by the man himself, David Lynch. May he rest in peace. Great little movie if you haven't seen it. Very odd and hard to describe, but I was head over heels in love with it the first time I saw it. And this is a 4K box set, so it comes with two discs, a Blu-ray version that also has some special features on the disc, and the 4K version. So here's our 4K disc, and we'll go ahead and plop this in. And when it comes to Blu-rays, DVDs, again, they can either be 4 dot something gigabytes, or if they're dual layered, then it'll have double that space, 8 point something gigabytes. Blu-rays are the same way. Blu-rays, they have 25 gigabytes if it's a single layer disc. And if it's a dual layer disc, it'll have 50 gigabytes. And for Ultra HD Blu-rays, or BDXL, those discs basically are Blu-rays, but they have additional layers starting at 66 gigabytes and going up to 100 gigabyte discs. And the layering, basically, all it means is that if you want to pay for a more expensive disc, you could put more data on it. But there is still like a kind of a minimum and a maximum. But in that in between is, yeah, basically just how much does the manufacturer want to spend on the disc. So Criterion, I mean, these are nice, collector's items. People are willing to pay good money for a good product. And so that's what we get. On here, there's a lot of space. We can see here data capacity 88.98 gigabytes. So this is basically a 100 gigabyte disk. But you will see other movies, even though they're a 4K Blu-ray, they'll come on like a smaller, 66 gigabyte disc, because it might be not as prestigious a release. I was ripping some of the Daniel Craig James Bond movies recently, and those come on like a 66 gigabyte disc. Now they're still nicer, but more space means larger file size and more detail. We're going to click here to start opening the disk. So now Make MKV is using my Libra Drive access mode, assuming direct control. And we're reading the disk here. The way that I think this works essentially is there are sets of playlists laid out on the disk, and Make MKV is kind of parsing those to ultimately see what lists are here. Now, this is a very simple disk. All the special features are on the regular Blu-ray, which means that pretty much all 100 gigabytes of this disk are dedicated to the movie. The biggest problem that you'll find using Make MKV is that none of these titles have any names, right? Each of these playlists or video files or what have you aren't named, so you're going to have to use context clues to figure out what you're looking to rip, right? But this one's very straightforward. This is an 88 gigabyte file and a couple other files of varying megabytes in size. So if you were to rip this, like this, well, so this is obviously the movie, and we can see some extra details here. We can see this is encoded with HEVC, that's H.265, high efficiency video codec. So the successor to MP4s that are used pretty ubiquitously. HEVC is the next one. And at this point, most all devices do support it. It's still newer. It's going to have less compatibility with MP4s, but HEVC is used, it's been used on every iPhone for the last several years. And so most devices can support it. And when I say support, there's a couple different methods. Your phone could do it all in software, which is just code that it runs to decrypt it, but not decrypt it, to decode it and display it. But those tend to be pretty slow. Usually, most of these devices need a dedicated part of the chip, the CPU, the silicon that your phone or whatever runs on will have just a tiny little piece that's only purpose is to decode uh, video files. And so those will have little dedicated portions for various codecs. Some of them don't make the cut. The newest one right now is AV1. I guess it's maybe not the newest. There's also the successor to HEVC, which is VVC, Versatile Video Codec. Maybe that's the newest one. But AV1 is the open source, the free one. MP4s like MP3s and MP5s, HEVC and H.265, all of those have license fees that you have to pay to be able to use them. So big corporations are interested in not having to pay. Facebook and Netflix, they put a lot of money, and Google as well, into researching a newer codec. AV1 is that new codec. It's the successor to VP9, which is used in like WebM content. But Netflix, YouTube, they're trying to transition all of their videos over to this new format as soon as possible, but they're kind of waiting for hardware to roll out. Only the latest devices have AV1 encoding and decoding support. But here, we're using HEVC. This is what you'll find on pretty much every Ultra HD Blu-ray is H.265 video. And main 10 means that it uses a 10-bit color space, so it supports HDR. That's another big benefit with Ultra HD Blu-rays. It's not just that they're at 4K instead of 1080p, but they also have that wider color gamut, so you get some more color detail. Extra detail looks better, and especially if you have a nicer monitor or display, something OLED or with active LED lighting zones behind it that can make use of that extra color detail and provide better contrast. And we can see some other details here. L5.1, so the audio that accompanies this is surround sound 5.1 channel, so 6 channels, the .1 being a subwoofer and 5 other surrounding channels. And then this BL, FEL, RPU. So this is Dolby Vision, which is a type of HDR. Not only do we have like a main 10 HDR layer, but then on top of that, we have some additional HDR metadata. Just the idea with Dolby Vision and HDR 10 Plus is its equivalent. Dolby Vision is a proprietary format. But instead of having like a 10-bit color gamut for the whole video, it's got 10 bits for like each individual frame. So you could, it's dynamic potentially. You could have different types of sets of colors, even wider color range. In practice, I don't really know if it matters that much. I think regular HDR is going to be just as transformative, and you really need like a nice display to see that difference. But when we rip this file, all of that is going to be maintained. The audio tracks underneath, so we can see here it's got DTS HD Master Audio, or DTS HD MA. This is lossless audio, essentially. Now again, with these movies, the majority of the disc is dedicated to the video content itself. And audio, it doesn't really need to take up that much space. So because of that, a lot of these releases, Blu-ray or Ultra HD Blu-ray, they don't mind just tossing all of the lossless audio into onto the disc, because it's not like it's that much larger. And DTS HD MA is interesting. The way that it works is it actually creates 2 audio tracks. So you can see underneath it's got this other DTS surround 5.1 English track. This is just regular old DTS. What they do is, to make the lossless version, they actually encode the audio into DTS and have this DTS layer. And then the additional track is all of that data that they threw away while making the lossy DTS track, if that makes sense. So you've got a lossy DTS track, and then that plus this extra layer of all the data that they threw out can create a lossless audio track. That's what DTS HDMA is. And I guess it's there for like compatibility reasons. If you didn't have a receiver that was capable of decoding DTS HDMA, then like you could just default back to this DTS um, track. Uh, but again, uh, for uh, well, we'll talk a little bit, a bit more about the different audio and video formats once we get to ripping. The last thing I do want to mention though here is there are also subtitles, which you'll see on Blu-rays are these HDMV PGS subtitles. These are like bitmap images, so they're not text, but they're actually images that are timed to show up at certain intervals throughout a movie. It affords some advantages over using text, like you can not just style the text in a basic way, but you could pick specific typefaces and position them at different parts of the screen. Um, and underneath, you'll see this forced only. Sometimes you can have forced subtitles, which is like for, if you're watching an English movie where characters are speaking a language that's not English, then typically you'll see subtitles appear even if you don't have them turned on so that we can understand what those characters are saying. Those are forced subtitles. You can have those baked into the PGS subtitle bitmap, and instruct your Blu-ray player like, hey, when you start playing the video, you should play these subtitles, these forced subtitles, which is only for these scenes in the movie where these characters are speaking a foreign language. But otherwise, you can just pull all subtitles, the subtitle track. Here, again, we just have the one. This disc is really simple. There's not a lot else going on here. These other files, like this is going to be the video that plays in the background on the main menu. And these are going to be the other, like the FBI warning or other stuff like that when you boot up the disc. You can change some of these metadata properties while you're saving the MKV, but otherwise, you'll just pick where you want the file to go and click Make MKV, and it'll start ripping the disk. It's also worth mentioning in the options here, you can change the minimum title length. I think by default it's like 30 seconds or something. So then you wouldn't get like these, like the FBI warning and other stuff like that. But if you're ripping a disc that has a lot of extra video content like Easter eggs or featurettes, then this might actually keep you from finding some of those videos. So I made it the lowest possible setting and I rip everything. I just rip the whole disc, dump the whole thing, because then it makes it a lot easier when they don't have any names, any titles. Then you can actually watch the video content and just see for yourself what's going on here. I don't know if there's really anything else in here worth mentioning. BD Plus, yeah, I haven't messed with any of those really. But another innovation of Blu-rays over DVDs is they can run Java applications. You ever install Java and it tells you like over 5 million devices use Java today. And Blu-ray players are one of those. Any Blu-ray player, it can run Java applications. I think that's what BD Plus is. Usually it describes like BD Live internet connected stuff, but I don't know. I guess the idea was that DVD games and like intricate menu systems were really popular. So they tried to expand on that with Blu-rays, but I don't really remember that much interesting BD Plus content. I'm trying to think though. I did have to set it up to get something to work recently. I mean, I guess some menu systems probably use Java in some way, but anyway, this is pretty straightforward. This disc, 88 gigabytes, that's the movie. You can pick which tracks and subtitles you might want to pull, but you can also just strip those out later. So I would suggest you just go ahead and pull everything and you can sort it out when you're done. But this is 88 gigabytes. It's pretty big. And like I said, it's pretty straightforward. What if you had a disc that was a little more opaque or had some more options? I'm going to take a look at that here. in just a moment. Swap this disc over. So my wife has been really into Lost recently. Just started watching for the first time the TV show from 2004 where uh, Jumbo Jet explodes over a mysterious island and all the survivors have to find out what the flip is going on and what the flip they got to do. Um, but she's been obsessed. And recently, uh, tried watching it on Hulu, where you can stream it today, and started having to watch ads for some reason out of nowhere. And we're borrowing a family member's account, so I'm not gonna like ask him, "Hey, what happened there?" But instead, why not just go buy the Blu-ray? These Blu-rays are cheap. You can find them everywhere because Lost was a sensation several years ago, and a lot of those people have moved on and don't have a Blu-ray player anymore, which is more benefit for me. That being said, this is a nice thick box set just for one season. We've got let's see, one, two, three, four, five discs, and this is one of the shortest seasons of the show. Uh, some of these seasons are 20 something episodes, each with like an hour long episode, 45 minutes without commercials, right? And this show had a huge fandom and a lot of intricate detail, so there were lots of extras too. In fact, these discs are loaded with Easter eggs because the show is all about like secrets, you know? Um, I knew my wife was going to love digging into all of those bonus features, but not if you have to like pop it into the Blu-ray player to watch all the time. I mean, you sit down for a prestige TV show, of course, you can dedicate 45 minutes, an hour, or whatever, but yeah, for bonus features, I mean, you know, what even is on the disc, and what are how do I find the Easter eggs, and how long are some of these videos? Wouldn't you just rather have them all digitized? So that has been my obsession recently. I went ahead and popped in disc 4 of season 5, and we can see this is a dual layer Blu-ray. So this is 5 discs plus a bonus disc exclusive to certain retailers. But 5 discs, each dual layered 50 gigs in size. And let's go ahead and open it up and see what's inside. So it's not a 4K Blu-ray. This is the, as it says on the back of the box here, the 2009 Blu-ray release. So this is back from when it first um, came out. And as we watch it slowly read through the disc and open up, we'll see the kind of content we expect from a disc from this time period. So here we've got lots more chapters than we had before, right? And we can pretty clearly tell these top 4 are the episodes, which is mostly what you care about. But there is some other interesting content on here too, including all the way down here at the bottom, a 2.3 gigabyte file. What is all of this? We crack these open and we can see there's even more. Oh my gosh, so much stuff here. We've got the same DTS HD MA, just like on our Ultra HD Blu-ray. We got lossless audio. That's pretty nice. Do you think this aired in 5.1 surround sound? Probably not. We also have a backup, a Dolby Digital stereo track. So this is, you know, for, again, if you don't have a receiver that's capable of deciphering 5.1 surround sound, you can have just a regular old stereo track, not DTS, but Dolby Digital, which is kind of interesting. But these days, again, you don't really have to worry about your device can handle extra channels and it'll mix it all down for you. You don't really need this stereo track. But we've got a French translation, a Spanish translation, or dub, I should say, um, a Portuguese dub, and lots of subtitles. All of these PGS subtitles for tons of different languages. Um, and let's see if this disc happens to have. I don't know if this one does. Some of these, yeah, I guess this one doesn't. But some of these episodes also have commentary tracks on them, and so that's another. That's going to be another audio track um, on this disc, right? So I don't know what all the rest of this is, right? That's why I'm like, well, let's just dump it and find out. So I'll save you the time. I went ahead and dumped this disc. And, oops, let's go in here and see what is in the disc. Let's ignore this subtitles folder because that was something I was messing with earlier. But I went ahead and sorted this by size so we can see, once again, these are the largest files. So they're probably the episodes. About 10 gigabytes in size apiece. So that comes up to 40 gigabytes. That's basically it. That's most of a dual layer Blu-ray at 50 gigs, right? Um, and the title ordering does kind of help sometimes. This is 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's probably the order of these episodes. But we've got some other stuff in here too. This 2.3 gigabyte file that happens to be 19 minutes long. So this has to be some kind of bonus feature. And then underneath that, we have all of the different menus. So let's go ahead and pop this one open, for example. So this is the video file that plays when you're loading up the disc. These different menu options aren't actually, like a DVD. They're not graphics, but it's all just baked in as part of the video, right? But sometimes they're not. Sometimes it is just like the empty background video, and I kind of love that. I really wish this didn't have the menu options on here because this would be a really neat ambient 30 seconds of Lost. But we got to have it, fade in and out so you can watch it on loop over and over. But because this is a disc with multiple languages on it, then actually we have lots of different versions of these videos that have different text on them. So that's what most of these are, is basically just the same menu video, but with a different language. And then underneath we have some other awesome relics. Let's watch this together.
Exclusively on Blu-ray. Experience Season Play on select titles. The new way to watch TV on Blu-ray. Just click Season Play on your Blu-ray menu when you play any episode of your favorite show. And even if you stop watching, remove the disc, or watch something else, you can put any disc from the season back in, and Season Play will remind you where you left off. Staying on top of your favorite shows is as simple as Season Play. Exclusively on high-definition Blu-ray.
Grey's Anatomy, the complete 4th season, and Lost. So this is kind of cool. We actually got to use this where it uses another feature of Blu-rays. When you play a Blu-ray, you can have it save data on your Blu-ray player, kind of like a cookie on a website, right? It's mostly useful for when you're watching a movie. You pull out the disc. When you put the disc back in, it can be like, hey, do you want to start where you left off? Not unlike a VHS tape, right? But it's like saving a little timestamp on your Blu-ray player. Here, it kind of uses the same tech. It's like, oh, we'll save not just where you were, but like what episode you were on. And a lot of these discs, when you're navigating the menu, it shows all episodes across the whole box set. And if you pick a disc that it doesn't have, it'll just say, hey, insert this disc. It's kind of interesting. We've also got, other little, intro videos like this. The kind of stuff you see like as soon as you put the disc in. And again, lots of extra credits for the different dubs. You'll notice these are actually like really short video files. Oops, this one doesn't even have anything. But it's like every single frame has, credits, and the Blu-ray player is just instructed to sit on that frame for a long time. So that's all just to say, I mean, most of this stuff you probably don't need. You can just delete all of it. Some of these are, literally just like 5 seconds of black screen. It's not really anything that you need to keep. But sometimes you'll find nice secrets, or even just this is a bonus feature. It's listed on the back of the box. So this is like a special that they made for commemorating the 100th episode of the show. Oops. And so that's what this 2.3 gigabyte file is. But sometimes without the names, it's kind of hard to decide, like, well, what do I rip or what do I get rid of, right? All this stuff, I vote we can delete. But the rest of these seem like they're actually useful videos, right? So now we've ripped them. Are we done? Not exactly. Let's use another application that I find really helpful. Media Info. This is a free open source app, cross-platform, so you can use it on any operating system, and it'll just really quickly tell you some of the video metadata, a bit of which we had previewed before. But this gets really deep in the weeds. So I just threw in one of these. What is this? 9.5 gigabyte, excuse me. On Linux, we use gigabytes video files. Um, and so we can see a little bit more of the details here. This is a MKV. It's a Matroshka video file. We can see what wrote it was Make MKV on Linux. And specifically the writing library was libmakemkv on Linux. And for the video, it's using advanced video codec AVC, so that's MPEG-4. And we can see the frame size is 1920 by 1080, so that's 16 by 9 aspect ratio. The frame rate is constant at 23.976 frames per second. We can see the color space is YUV at 4 by 2 by 0. And this is really interesting to me. How much of the video file of this 9.5 gigabytes is the video itself? It's 6.67 gigabytes. So 70% of that 9.5 gigabytes is video. Love gigabytes, such a good name. Yeah, I know, it makes me laugh. I had to be correct and say, well, it's not actually gigabytes, but it's like euros to dollars almost. For like, oh, they're within spitting distance. They're pretty close. If you, it's not like yen, where like 10,000 yen is not $10,000. But it has to do with like using base 10 for how we add up the data. Gigabytes is like technically makes more sense and is easier to use, but it's also like when you hear somebody be like, I use Deverac for my keyboard, and you're like, yeah, okay, that's a little extra, but whatever. On Linux, it's just everywhere, and that's fine with me, but I have to explain. Again, you can look it up later if you want. Set your own system to use gigabytes. Okay, so that's the video track. Then we can see the audio track here. So it's the DTS HD track that we were talking about before. We can see the sampling rate at 48 kilohertz and how many channels there are and what the channel layout is, how long the track is. Obviously, it should match up with the video. The fact that, yeah, it's 24-bit lossless. And if it has like a language or another title. And again, how much of the track is the video file? It's just a tenth of the video file itself, 1 gigabyte in size. And then on top of that, we've got the DTS file. Now, again, this is at this point completely separate. We've got the lossless track here. We can delete this lossy track, and the lossless one will still work fine, even though they are kind of mastered in tandem with each other. But yeah, again, we can see some of the details like the bit rate, 1,509 kilobits versus 3,000 for the lossless format, right? And even then, you probably still can't tell the difference without using an A/V test or something. But that's something else I like to look at. For the video, we're getting a bit rate of 22 megabits per second, which again, that's close to the bit rate that you're going to find when you stream 4K video off of the internet. If you're watching a movie on Netflix in 4K, they generally recommend you have a minimum bandwidth of 25 megabits per second. And this is coming in like right around there, and yet they are stuffing 4 times the pixels worth into what on a Blu-ray is being used to house a 1080p video, right? So discs are going to have a lot higher bit rate, at least from the start, right? What's nice is that this is an MPEG, It's MPEG 4. So this video file is like pretty commonly used, but it's the audio that tends to be kind of an issue with these Blu-rays. This is DTS HD. You're not typically using DTS on like your phone or something similar, right? Even Dolby Digital. That's a proprietary format, and not every device is going to support using AC3, audio coding 3. That's the Dolby Digital format. Just the left and right channels here, and it only takes up is like 1%. It's not even 100 megabits or MIBI bytes. um, we keep scrolling past all these other languages that are also on here, and we're starting to get to the text. So the PGS, picture-based subtitle format, uh, that is used for some of these. This media info app is just really nice to be able to quickly, at a glance, look at some of this metadata to kind of know what we're working with. But most Blu-rays are going to look something like this. We're going to have like an MPEG 4 video. Early Blu-rays, I think, use a different codec, but the majority of Blu-rays, they use MPEG 4, which we're all kind of used to, but they have some sort of funky home theater audio format like DTS or Dolby, and that's not very useful for us, right? Um, so we're gonna have to remux it. No, I think actually it's we're gonna have to transcode it if we want it to be easier to view. Now, again, if you're just watching these on your computer, then hey, VLC will play anything. We just watched me playing a little bit, and
Comes fully equipped.
here's the video of this episode. We can right click, go to audio track, and we can pick any of these audio tracks that were contained in this video file. And we can do the same for the subtitles. All the subtitles are here.
I'm telling you, it's a steal at 400.
And it's playing the little bitmap images underneath, right?
You gotta check with your husband?
And you can also pick a video track if the file happens to have any. And we can see some of the metadata in here as well. The title of that we saw in MKV earlier is up here in the title bar. But again, most folks aren't going to be playing videos like this on their computer. They're going to be playing on a more limited device. And also, this video is 10 gigabytes for 1 hour-long episode. That's a lot of space. Again, if you're trying to rip like a whole box set, all of those discs being about 50 gigabytes in size, if you have 5 gigabytes, I mean, you're going to run out of space pretty quickly. And luckily, video encoding has gotten even more advanced as time has gone on. So while these are all using MP4s, today we use HEVC, and that's a more basic video codec compared to the more advanced ones, AV1 and VVC, that are on the horizon. So we'll need to use some software to transcode these. But before we do that, I do want to also show off another tool I really like, MKV Tool Nix. I guess this is MKV Tool Nix GUI, but that's because there's a MKV Tool Nix command line utility you can use as well. When you're working with MKVs, this is really nice because you can plop in like this video, for example. We can see all the same tracks that we were looking at before, but we can make a new file that, say, has, you know, none of the audio tracks like we don't need. I don't need any of these other audio tracks. I don't need any of these other subtitles either. So we can just uncheck all of these, keep the chapter markings, keep the subtitles and the audio, and the video itself. And we can also change the track names or set certain tracks as default. If we wanted to like make sure that subtitles were enabled at all times. Or if you just want to strip out some of it. I wanted to strip out like the audio track for a file before. You can do that just by only selecting the audio, and it makes an MKA file that you can throw into Audacity or whatever. Or the PGS files. So this is something else that I've messed with a lot, these PGS subtitle files that are bitmaps. Um, you can also, yeah, edit chapters of certain videos. Again, this has some chapters, but we could change those if we needed to. Um, edit the headers themselves. We can also like append files. This is like really, really nice. I love this feature a lot. So you could like basically connect to video files and you don't have to transcode them at all. So the video quality remains exactly the same. It's not being compressed in any way, but uh, it's one video file, one after the other. All the chapter markers are, and like the subtitles, they appear at the right times. And it happens really quickly because, again, you don't have to do any transcoding, which is really nice. So this tool is really useful, can do a lot of really nice stuff, um, but we don't really need to mess with much of that right now. Instead, we're going to use Handbrake. Handbrake has been around for a long time. I've been using it for over a decade. It was originally made for this kind of purpose. Uh, People who were ripping DVDs that wanted to then put those movies on their iPod. Not even an iPod Touch, mind you, but like an iPod Video, if you remember those. I don't know who really was like watching whole movies on there per se, but on a plane or something like that, it's nice, I guess. But the point is that these videos that we're ripping, whether they're DVDs or Blu-rays, they are video files that are not widely compatible, not compatible with an iPod or anything like that. So you're going to need something like Handbrake to take that video and transcode it into another format. The downside here is that, yeah, we are going to compress the video again. The video has already been compressed to be put on this 50 gigabyte disk, right? But we're going to compress it even more because still 10 gigabytes is a lot. And I bet you if we put it through one of these encoders, you're not going to notice the difference. I'm not going to do an A/B test here because that would be kind of fruitless. Like we're already streaming over the internet I'm using HEVC to stream over to YouTube, but who knows how they're transcoding it and sending it to your device right now. You may not have that support. I think actually everything on YouTube uses VP9, right? The WebM format, the predecessor to AV1. So it's being transcoded already in some way. So it's not useful for me to do it, but you can do it yourself at home. Let me show you how Handbrake works, okay? We're going to open up this file here. Pay no attention to all of my random crap. So here is one of the video files, spoilers for season 5 of Lost. And we'll start by selecting the format that we want to put this in. I've been using MPEG-4, which is like MP4s. It's restrictive compared to MKVs. You can't just do anything and toss anything in there. But they're more compatible, so I like using them. But you can use MKVs, Matryoshka, if you want to make life easier for yourself. I'm using MPEG-4s. And you can use these to kind of flip through and see what the video looks like or what it will look like when we make some changes. A couple other options here. Web optimized. This basically puts all of the video content at the front of the file and like the headers at the back. So if you were streaming it over the internet, then the first thing you would get is the video content. You don't like need to do it, but I do it because I don't know why not. It'll at least probably make the video easier to load. I also like to pass through common metadata. So if there's any video or audio tracks we're not changing, then at least that metadata is maintained, which just, I think, makes life easier compatibility wise. It propagates over like the names of the files, the tracks, that sort of stuff. So I like to keep that enabled. And then align AV start. I guess basically some players don't respect like where there are like timestamps that don't have blank frames or something. I don't think that's something you really have to worry about unless you're doing a lot of heavy changes to the video file. But if we go to dimensions here, we can see like the resolution limit. You can set this to 4K, but I'm just using 1080p because this is a 1080p video file. And you can see it's already kind of figured all that out. You can also do some cropping here. This is nice for like movies that have like a specific aspect ratio. It can automatically determine where the black bars are at the top and bottom of an image and crop those out so the video files like a resolution specific to that aspect ratio. Um, I like that because again, these days most video players they aren't going to freak out when they don't see like 16:9 content. They'll play it all the same. And so then it means if you have like an odd resolution, some phones, for example, they're not most phones aren't 16:9 if you put them in landscape. Um, but you can just let the phone handle the weird aspect ratio. Or if you had like an ultra wide monitor or something like that, if you had like a secondary monitor that's a 4:3 screen, then you're not going to have black bars on the sides. So, again, as part of my homegrown media editing experience here that I'm doing, I do like to trim those borders out. But you want to be careful that you don't apply it like automatic all the time. Some movies have changing aspect ratios. If it's like a IMAX movie, like a Chris Nolan movie, usually it'll be in like a anamorphic widescreen format, and then it'll flip to full 16:9 for the IMAX scenes. And Handbrake's probably not going to look that deep into the movie to realize that it changes. I remember being devastated when I was younger. I pulled or ripped my Blu-ray of the Grand Budapest Hotel. It was like 10 years ago. Um, and it features a ton of changing aspect ratios as part of its like frame narrative. But uh, Handbrake incorrectly guessed where to crop, and I wasn't paying attention. So I had it like doing some encode all night, overnight, and then I woke up and found out it was the totally wrong size, and it cropped out most of the movie. So that's just something to keep in mind. The cropping is nice. It's typically set to automatic, but you might want to be a bit more restrictive with it. But you can see the results of that cropping in the preview here, if you find that useful. Filters as well. This can be kind of nice if you're dealing with old uh, videos that have interlacing, where they would basically pass interwoven frames of data. Every other frame is one set of lines. So they would have, instead of 240p progressive scan, 240 lines worth of data, you could every other frame do 240 lines and just do every other line. And changing really quickly would look like higher resolution 480 image, but in actuality, it's interlaced 480i instead of 240p. We don't really have to worry about any of that these days, but even back, in 2009, a lot of these extras, for example, there's heavy interlacing. You'll see, like on motion, combing artifacts. And so these filters can detect that interlacing and try to de-interlace them with Bob de-interlacing or whichever kind of preset you prefer. That just tries to, fill in some of those gaps with data from the previous or next frames. But we don't really have to deal with that for most of this HD content. Then we get into the good stuff here, okay? The video format here. We choose our encoder. I'm using an NVIDIA graphics card, so I can actually offload all of that encoding onto the graphics chip itself, which I recommend for everybody. If you're not using NVIDIA, Intel and AMD have their own. Intel's is QuickSync, and AMD's is... I forget what it is. But they all have their own hardware encoding options. It is way faster than what your CPU can do, and it's the same exact quality. So I would suggest, for me on NVIDIA, it's this NVENC, NVIDIA encoder. And you can see we've got two different ones, H.265 and H.265 10-bit. So 10-bit is what you use for HDR. If we were doing a 4K movie, you'd do that and select main 10 as the profile, and it would maintain that HDR metadata. Now, it won't maintain the Dolby Vision metadata that we had discussed before. Handbrake just throws that out. But at least if you're using any of these 10-bit encoders, you can keep that HDR metadata. But again, for TV show like Lost from 2009, there's no HDR, so we can just set this to H.265, leave the profile at auto, the level at auto, the tune set to none. The color range should be same as source. The frame rate should be same as source. And that leaves us with just a couple different options to change. Constant, or I'm sorry, I already said. Well, yeah, constant frame rate and variable frame rate. You should set constant frame rate for almost all this content that you're doing. Okay, so you can choose, first of all, this preset down here. Fastest, faster, fast, medium, slow, slower, or slowest. This is how long your computer is going to take to do the encoding. Most people say slow is fine. You can do slowest if you really want, or slower if you really want. And slowest is placebo, that there's not really much discernible difference between them. I do all of mine at slowest because I'm planning on really just doing these encodes once, and time is not of the essence for me. When I'm streaming, I'm using a different preset. Even though I'm still using HEVC, I'm using ENC, NVENC right now to stream, but I do it at a faster preset because it's actually important to get these out more quickly for the live stream. But for these video encodes I'm doing on my own time, like these can be set to however slow. Take your time. It's not crazy slow. Doing an episode of a show, I don't know, it takes like 20 minutes maybe. It's not really that bad. But you don't really need to. Slow and slower are fine. But you'll start to see a bit, worse quality in your video if you do these faster or fastest presets. The other thing to keep in mind is the constant quality, the CQ value here. This is a logarithmic value between 1 and 51. And it's better to use this than a bit rate. You could set a constant bit rate, but instead we want to use the fancy technology of the HEVC, the high efficiency video codec, where it can use its algorithms to determine the best places to nip and tuck video quality in each frame, rather than saying every frame we gotta be sending video quality at a constant bit rate. Choose the constant quality instead, and pick a value that you like. This is really going to change the file size for better or for worse. If you do these big, giant values, then the file size is going to be extremely small, and the video is going to look like it. But if you do these upper values, the video file will be pretty much unchanged, and you're not going to see much visual difference. I've toyed around in the 20s. I would say stick there. I tried 19, thinking like, well, I'm a quality snob, and I started going lower and realizing I could not, in an A/B test, see the difference between the values. So like, these days I've been using 26 for movies. And if it's like a bonus feature, I'll bump it even further to 29 because you're really not going to be able to tell. You are going to have to encode the video either way. So I can, in an A/B test, tell the difference between just the raw Blu-ray and any, a logarithmic value of 1. I can tell the difference. But between like 1 and, 26, I can't tell the difference. Again, there's no point in me doing an A/B test for you guys here, but I'll just show how drastic some of this can be. Again, pay no attention to the quality or my random video files here. Okay, so I did do some tests here. I picked like every other value and just went with some a random clip from a favorite movie of mine, No Country for Old Men. And yeah, if we pick one from the lowest numbers here, let's go with, quality constant 9.
I thought it was a car fire.
It is a car fire. Wendell said there's something in the back country, too.
We'll pause here. This, again, is from a Criterion Blu-ray, so we got lots of nice film grain all over. It looks a little compressed because that film grain doesn't really compress well, but you're not really going to notice unless you pause like I just did, right? Now let's open up another clip from all the way up here in like the 40s, right? Let's see if we'll be able to notice.
I thought it
Yeah,
was a
I
car
mean,
fire.
can
It
you
is
see
car
how much
fire. Wendell
worse
said
this
there's
video
something in
quality
the back
is?
country too.
You can see all of this like chroma subsampling here, or yeah, just this chromatic aberration. All these hyper compressed colors, lots of little blocky squares all over. I mean, look at this hat. You can, it looks polygonal, like from a N64 game or something, you know. So this is what did I say? This is the 45 versus what, like 9? This is 9, I think. But let's take a look at the video file. That is a 10 megabyte, 10 meg file for a 2-minute video clip versus this at 9. You'll actually see all of these video files are exactly the same size. Like they didn't even reduce the size really at all. So of course it looks pretty much the same. But the file size starts to dip drastically, especially as we go beneath 25. Oh my gosh. These get even smaller and smaller until it's like comically small.
I thought it was a car fire.
It is car fire. Wendell said there's something in the back country too.
Now I'm curious what that looks like at home. You know, for me it's very obvious, but maybe over the internet it doesn't look as crazy. Who knows? So this quality constant is really the giant lever that you're pulling to determine the video quality and the size of the video itself. So play around with this, do some A/B tests on your own, and see what you can do. I would recommend though picking like a clip so you don't have to like re-encode the whole movie or something over and over, but just like a 2-minute segment. You can use this range here and enter in the seconds to say, you know, what chunk of video you want to include or encode rather. But yeah, this quality constant is really the lever that you pull to change the video file size. And the video file is the biggest part of the file itself. The video track, I should say, is the biggest part of the file, like we saw before. And this is where there's still research being done, better encoders being made to make the video look better at smaller file sizes. So lots of work to be done here, but this is really the screen where, you know, I would make the most changes on this quality constant. The audio to me is like a solved problem. If, you know, MP3s were so good that they kind of blew up the music industry, and then we went a step further with AAC. That's the MP5, the H.265, effectively, or MP4s, I guess, use AAC. Excuse me. Advanced audio coding. But yes, that's again the MPEG proprietary format. If you want to use the open source format, you can use Opus, which succeeds OGG Vorbis. But Opus again is effectively just as good, and at a high enough bit rate, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. So unless you have a really nice setup, you can save a lot of space here by just encoding these to the right format. But it's nice to have this lossless audio track so we're not, you know, re-encoding like we are with the video. Instead, we've got just one lossless audio track here, and we can encode it to our choice of audio format. We've got Opus, as I just mentioned, or AAC. Those are the two I would probably stick with, but you can also choose FLAC, ALAC, my beloved Apple lossless audio codec. We got PCM. These are all kind of lossless audio formats, or MP3. But again, you want to choose something that is cross-compatible. Most devices, they're not going to be able to play Dolby AC3 or EAC3. They're not going to be able to play DTS HD, True HD. Even like PCM or FLAC even aren't always supported. So I use AAC, even though it's proprietary. HEVC is also proprietary. So if you can decode HEVC video, you can probably also decode AAC. And the bitrate I choose is 192. That's like at that rate, even audiophiles cannot tell the difference between lossless and lossy AAC at that kind of a bitrate. But what I do like to do is make sure that I choose the right number of channels. This is a 5.1 channel audio track, so we should have we don't need to down down mix all of those tracks into stereo, right? We might as well keep it at 5.1 channels. And if you play this on a nice surround sound setup, or if you have software that can turn that surround sound into like headphone oral audio, I think that's how it's pronounced, binaural, AURAL. But it's made for headphones. You can virtually set up the surround sound speakers. But you're throwing that data away if you downsample it or downmix it to stereo. So I would set it to 5.1 channels. But then at that point, you want to make sure you increase the bit rate. So then I do 384. What is this? Megabits per second, kilobits per second. Which again, for 5.1 channels, that's like as high as you need to go. Doesn't need to be any higher. And then just make sure that you name the track appropriately, or you can call it English or whatever. And then, yeah, delete the rest of these tracks unless you think that, you would ever flip over to the French or Spanish language. But most of these other ones are really just here for compatibility, which you don't need. Okay, lastly is the subtitles. So this is an interesting element of this whole endeavor. There are lots of subtitles here, but MP4s don't support the PGS bitmap format. So you can see instead these must be burned into the video. In other words, it'll just write those bitmaps onto each frame, which I don't really want. I want to be able to selectively toggle whether or not I want subtitles on. Sometimes I want them, sometimes I don't, right? But these PGS tracks aren't supported in MPEG-4. If you're using MKVs like Matryoshka, then you can actually pass them through. So I switched it over to MKV, and now I can include all of these PGS subtitles as subtitles, and you can select if you do want to burn them in, or if you only want to include the forced subtitles that we talked about earlier, you want to set it as the default track, you could do that. But if you want to use MP4s, which again, I'm really just doing for compatibility, it's not strictly a requirement, but if you want to use MP4s, then you have to turn those PGS subtitles into SRTs. So let's take a look at some software I use to do that. Subtitle Edit is one of these. And let's go ahead and open... I moved them out of there, didn't I? Let's see. Where will I find some? I have some in here. So these are, as you can see, each of the individual bitmapped images. You can show the image here. These are just, bitmap images that are overlaid onto videos when you watch them. They're not text. But you can use software like Subtitle Edit to OCR the image files. Basically, read the images and try to translate them into text. It's kind of a bad example, but if we use like this one, we can tell it to OCR them using English Dictionary, try to fix the errors, and let me know when you see any words you don't understand. I'm going to uncheck that just for this. We're going to go ahead and say start, and it's going to fly through and try to guess all the different words. And so now, look, it's turned those bitmap images into text. And it'll try and highlight words like warpy. That's not a word, but that is what the image says, so we can leave it there. Any other words you don't know? Duhul. I think that's actually supposed to be double negative. Or no-hodied. I think you mean no-bodied, right? So there are some errors that you have to edit. But then we have, again, for all these text subtitles, what time they got to show up on screen, what time they're supposed to be hidden, how long they show up on screen for. And you can use this software to edit them further if you really want to, but I just really use it to do that OCR. And then we can save it as a subrip format. I actually already did this, so I'm not going to save it. But let me show you instead what they look like. It's a plain text file that just lists all of the different subtitles and when they're supposed to be on screen for, what the timestamps are. So you can really easily crack these open and edit them yourself. You can see they do also support some very basic formatting tags, HTML formatting tags. But you can't do anything too fancy with them. Set different colors, certainly not typefaces, or like place them in different parts of the screen. Sometimes image-based subtitles will do that. And in that case, there are other means. SSA, Substation Alpha, is another type of image format, or subtitle format that's plain text, but allows you to do some of that fancy stuff. But I don't think MP4s support it, so I stick to SRTs. Now let me show you another website here. I don't know why this is so tall. Shrink further. Okay. This is a great website, opensubtitles.org, where you can type in the name of a movie, like we were just looking at Interstellar. And you can download SRT plain text subtitle files that other folks have uploaded. Mostly useful if you spoke a different language than the movie was made in, right? Then there's a lot of like community made, translations for different languages. But even for somebody like me, speaks English for an English movie, it's still really useful. So I don't have to do like the OCR work for a lot of these movies. So we can set the flag to English and then just download one that has like a lot of downloads or is from a well-respected user, like this one, for example. Pop it open. It's just this little tiny SRT file. And we can see the same plain text stuff we were looking at before. Now, that being said, I did download some from here once, and like in the middle of the subtitle file, somebody included like a random, like, their username. They were like, ooh, Hentai Senpai thanks you for using their subtitles. And you're like, okay, now I feel kind of turned off by using, but hey, this sidesteps a lot of work. If you don't want to have to use OCR to turn your EGS bitmap subtitles into plain text files. But you also really only need to do that if you are using MP4s like me. But if you're using MKVs, then again, MKVs accept everything, so you can put any old junk in there. But nonetheless, if you're doing what I did, then you'll want to click on Add New Track, check Import SRT, and then select the file, the SRT file that you want to use. And you can select a language and type in the name of it. And again, you can burn it in if you really want to, or set it as a default track. Another nice thing about these plain text ones, though, is then all of the text formatting is on the device itself. So some users might have device-specific settings for subtitles, especially if they actually rely on them for like closed captioning. If they're hard of hearing, or if they also have like a visual impairment, then it can be really important to be able to have like high contrast subtitles, and the bitmap images may not be enough. It's nice that with text-based ones, you can make the text as big as you want, whatever color you want, use whatever font you want on any kind of device, even though it may have some fewer advanced features like choosing the typeface for them or placing the text in certain parts of the frame. But I like the SRTs, and they're compatible with MP4s. The last or penultimate tab here is the chapter tab, where you can see all the chapters came through from the original Blu-ray rip, but you can name them if you want. Usually, I check the Blu-ray itself. I'll open it on Blu-ray player to go through the menus and see if they gave any of the chapters any special names, and I'll put them in here. But if they didn't give them any names, then just leave them be as chapters 1 and 2 and so on. And then the tags. These may or may not be used. I like to fill them out anyway, the title, actors, director, release date, genre description, plot, and comment. But most, Plex or even fancy apps like Infuse, which I use on my Apple devices, they'll go to an API to get the metadata for your video file, and they'll typically ignore some of this built-in metadata. So just something to keep in mind. This might get thrown out anyway. Once you make all these changes, you can save this as a preset that you can select, so you don't have to do it every single time. You can add it to a queue so that you can have a queue of this is what I was really looking for. A queue of different video files, so that you can have them all in code, and you can set it up to do all that when you go to bed, and it's churning away on your computer, and then shut the computer down when everything's done, right? Which is pretty nice. But definitely make sure to review the video files when you're done to make sure that you're happy with what you've got. So here are the ones I finished converting so far, just a small handful of movies and such. But yeah, here's the 11 gigabyte 4K with HDR Interstellar copy that I pulled the other day. Instead of VLC, I use MPV for these because it supports HDR, where VLC does not. But we can see now we've just got the one audio track here. We've got the one subtitle track. And we've got all the little chapter markings that didn't have any names on the Blu-rays, so they don't have any here.
In April,
We can skip through. Scary, right? Who knows what happens in that movie? I won't spoil it for you. But, yes, on Linux at least, I mean, I think everywhere VLC does not support HDR, but on Linux, MPV does support HDR, which is really nice for these 4K rips. And there we go. We took, a movie from 100 gigabyte 4K disc and crammed it down into an 11 gigabyte file where you can barely notice the differences. Plus, we stripped out all the audio tracks, the subtitles that we don't need. We even converted the subtitles to a format that's a bit more friendly. And it's all in an MP4, which is one of the most popular, if not the most popular video format around. For shows, I've got some Lost in here. How big is this? 3 seasons of Lost come out to 111 gigabytes, where each episode is about 1.5 gigabytes in size. And that's at a quality constant of 26 HEVC. So that's kind of the behind the scenes of my process, what I've been obsessed with recently. The only downside is I don't really have enough hard drive space for all of my Blu-rays, even compressed. And as a quality snob, in an ideal world, I would be dumping the discs raw and not touching them with Handbrake at all. But those are unfathomably large, and they are encoded with codecs that most devices don't support. So it kind of behooves you to just go ahead and compress them anyway. But I love doing it myself because at least I know exactly what is in the sauce. How are they being compressed? And how many times? When you download a video from the internet, you just have no clue how many hands it's passed through, how many times people have cranked that quality constant. So for me, I like to do it on my own and get to make it work exactly the way that I want it to. I can crop the video so that the um, aspect ratio is respected, and I can include the right types of subtitles. I can remove all of the audio tracks, but keep the commentary, you know? And with MKVs, I can use what really spurred this thought was I recently bought the 4K box set of the extended editions for The Lord of the Rings. All three movies. It came with 9 discs, so the theatrical cut for each movie on each disc. And then for the extended editions, each movie was split across 2 discs. Like 100 gigabytes was not enough for these extended editions of these movies. Um, Now I really appreciate them, giving it to us on multiple discs. That's the highest quality video that we're going to get for this movie. But I don't want to have to flip between 2 different video, discs or even necessarily video files, right? But MKV makes it really easy to just ka-chunk, uh, concatenate the 2 files on top of each other, so you can just have one video end and the other begin, and it's all in one file. However, that is like a 200 gigabyte file or however big, right? So um, then you got to compress that down to something much more manageable. But at least at that point, it's all in one video. The aspect ratio is respected. The audio tracks are just compressed to one time, but all 5.1 channels are there. We've got, subtitles that are in plain text that can be styled however you want. So they've been converted using OCR from their PGS originals. And it still has all the chapter markings retained, all of the HDR, no Dolby Vision, which is kind of a shame. There are some ways around that. There's a command line tool that I haven't really explored where you can run it against the original Make MKV RIP with that Dolby Vision metadata, and it'll put that metadata on its own little binary file. And then you can use that same tool to attach it later to maybe like a compressed MP4 or something like that. So that, if MK or Handbrake is ignoring that metadata, you can make use of it later. But it sounds kind of cumbersome considering like a lot of devices don't really make much use of it. Under the hood, Dolby Vision has like multiple different profiles. So when you like stream a Dolby Vision movie, like with Disney Plus, you pick a movie and the app says, okay, they're watching on a 4K device that supports Dolby Vision, so give us the 4K Dolby Vision file. And the file doesn't have anything else. It doesn't have any HDR10 layer or even like an SDR layer. It's all just the Dolby Vision color format. Because the app already knows like what device your hardware supports, what if it's using Dolby Vision or not, right? But on a Blu-ray, that's not the case. On a Blu-ray, they don't know, so they just have all of it. They have the HDR10 layer. They've got the Dolby Vision metadata on top of that. They even have an additional enhancement layer. But most devices can't. They don't support any of that data. They just ignore all of that Dolby Vision metadata. So you have to like make a kind of like you have to concoct your own file with like the right Dolby Vision profiles and whatever, and we're probably not even going to notice the difference. You don't even have a TV that's like that good to show off that Dolby Vision metadata anyway. I don't know. So I'm going to explore it someday, but it seems like a little cumbersome for nothing. But still, they got HDR, and they're otherwise exactly how I want them. And it makes me very happy. So I've been obsessed recently. I've not been doing anything that I'm supposed to be doing because instead I'm just ripping Blu-rays and organizing them exactly how I see fit. And it's been a lot of fun. So that's what I've been up to recently. And hopefully you enjoyed this little tutorial walking you through how you can do the same. You really just need a Blu-ray drive. You can buy an external USB Blu-ray drive. Maybe you won't be able to rip 4K Blu-rays, but it'll allow you to, go buy cheap Blu-rays from a local shop or even off of the internet for whatever you want. There's plenty of movies, shows, other media out there that you can't just buy digitally, which is a shame. And it just allows you to do whatever you want with it. Once you have those files, I mean, you can put them on any of your devices. These days, you don't have to use iTunes to sync with your iPod Touch anymore, right? You can plug a USB drive directly into an iPad, or you can use AirDrop or whatever manner of file transfer to get files onto devices like a tablet. And then you just got to find the right software. Again, on an iPad, they don't really have any like built-in media playing functionality, but I love Infuse, which I've used before. VLC also has an app on iOS, and on Android, I'm sure it's even more wild west, open range of apps and such to use. For a TV, though, you got to be able to cast, from a local file from your device onto a TV. And if your app doesn't support that, then you got to get creative. And that's where things like Plex and Jellyfin and what's it called? NB come into play. Those are, servers that can serve up those video files for users. And it can also take care of the transcoding. What we just did with Handbrake, it can try and do on the fly if, client connects and they don't have the hardware that supports the file format that you're serving. But that's where I think it's best to do it right once. And that's what I've been trying to do. If you make like the most compatible, highest quality video file, then you won't ever have to transcode again. And you'll have everything all in one file. And the other nice thing too, like I said, is these Blu-rays have lots of bonus features that you're not going to get typically when you're streaming over the internet. Some, on Netflix or Disney Plus, you'll find that some videos they do actually have lots of bonus features. Go check them out. Like it is not uncommon to have those on there, but most of the time they don't, and they're not going to necessarily replicate all of the same bonus features. So that's been a lot of fun. If it's something that you really enjoy, go seek out the Blu-ray, and you don't even have to pop it into your Blu-ray player to watch those movies or any of those extra features, but you can pop it into your computer, rip the disc, and have a file to do with what you please. But those plain old MKVs ripped raw from the Blu-ray aren't typically compatible on more than just your computer. You'll need something like Handbrake to convert them to a file format that is more compatible. And once you're doing that, you're doing transcoding, you're going to compress the video even more. So you want to be careful about how you compress the video so you don't compress it too much and make something ugly. But you also don't want to not compress it at all and, have it soak up way too much space. So hopefully this tutorial, this guide, has helped you walk through exactly how you might do that on your own machine. You don't have to use Linux to do it. You can use all this same software pretty much on Windows, even Mac OS a lot of the time. So don't feel like you got to be like me and run some type of Linux operating system to do any of this magic. All you really need is a Blu-ray drive, and it doesn't even have to be a special Blu-ray drive if you're not worried about Ultra HD 4K Blu-rays. But having a graphics card really helps for all of the encoding. Otherwise, you'll want to set some jobs to encode overnight and then walk away. So, if you'll excuse me, I have some videos to encode. I got to go walk away. But join me next week where I'm going to do something different. Probably play some video games, who knows? But as for right now, I got to feed my wife's lost addiction. So until next time, thanks for hanging out. Be safe, have fun. Let me know if you got any questions or if there's something else like this you want to see in the future. Or if you hated this, you found it really boring and I ruined your night, in which case, we'll take care of it next time. All right? Bye.